So the final part of metaphysics is love and metaphysics. We'll look first at the essay, Who Do You Love?, written by me, which appeared in the Philosopher's Magazine and then was published in What Don't You Know? So, love. When Jane loves Dick, what is it exactly that she loves? Well, the easiest and obvious answer would be Dick. This raises questions about who Dick is and what it is about him that she loves. First, let's look at ideal romantic love. In this case, Jane would love Dick himself and not his qualities or possessions. A good question would be, why not? Well, qualities and possessions can change, and they also can be possessed by others. So, if she loves him because of his looks, because of his, fancy car, because of his mansion, or other qualities, even, things we think of as virtues like his kindness, his generosity, these are all qualities that could be lost. They could change. Gravity and time are cruel and can take away his looks. And of course, people can suffer injuries that alter their personalities. And all these qualities and possessions could be possessed by other people. So someone else could have a better mansion. Someone else could have a fancier car. Someone else could look better in a swimsuit. Someone could even be kinder, more compassionate, more humorous. So ideal romantic love, at least in the movies and the stories, is not something that can fade or be transferred to another person with similar qualities. So the ideal love is not something that when someone starts to get a little older, falls behind in doing their crunchies or loses some income, that someone is supposed to lose that ideal romantic love. It's supposed to transcend all of that. Now, the sort of love that could go along with qualities and possessions as they change or are possessed by others would be what we could call interchangeable love, as opposed to ideal romantic love. And interchangeable love is exactly what it sounds like. It would be a love that focuses on qualities or possessions. And of course, if someone loves someone because of those qualities and possessions, then that love could presumably switch from person to person, because what is loved is the qualities and also perhaps the possessions. So what do we need to have ideal romantic love? Well, we need something that lies beneath all the qualities and possessions. Something special. What the special thing is what makes the person he is and separates him from all others. So what we're looking at, metaphysically speaking, is something that's already well established in philosophy. It's also seen as really problematic, not surprisingly. And this magnificent thing is known as the bare particular. A bare particular is a bare because it doesn't have any qualities of its own beneath all the qualities it supports. It is bare. That's why they call it bare, because it has no qualities. So it's also a particular. And it's a particular because there's only one of each bare particular, and each of them can only be in one location at a time. In metaphysics, that's how being a particular is defined. A particular is such that there's only one, and they can't exist in multiple locations at the same time, because that's the quality of a universal. They can exist in multiple places at the same time. And what a bare particular is supposed to do in metaphysics is distinguish each individual thing from all other things. So if you have a metaphysical theory and you have bare particulars in it, what they do is exactly that. They answer the question, why is each individual entity different? Why is one thing not another? And sort of the fundamental answer is they differ in bare particularity. And that's why you'd have it in your theory. Now, you can have a theory that doesn't use bare particularity to individuate things. In fact, most philosophers don't use them because they're, as we'll see, problematic and weird. So one way to have ideal love is this. One person simply loves the bare particularity of another, as opposed to their qualities or possessions. And this, as we saw before, is because qualities and possessions can change. They can also be duplicated or exceeded by another. So what would make metaphysical sense of ideal romantic love is the love is of literally the person themselves, what it is that makes them them, and nothing else in the universe could possess. It would be unique love. So then, what's the problem with naked love? Well, here's the obvious problem, and it's the standard problem for bare particulars, except involving love. When we interact with the world, we interact with various qualities and properties. So think of something as simple as eating a sandwich. You interact with the qualities and properties of that sandwich. The taste, the texture, etc. The warmth or the coolness of the sandwich. So one problem is what we interact with are these qualities and properties. And that's how we seem to know things, be aware of them. And metaphysically, there's the classic problem of how can you be aware of the metaphysical bare particularity of something? So getting back to Jane and Dick, how could she even be aware of his bare particularity? How would that work? Well, by hypothesis, it has no qualities. So there would seem to be nothing at all to experience. It would be particular and bare, but utterly without qualities. So it would seem impossible for Jane to be aware of Dick's bare particularity, and so be in love with him. This would seem to take love back to being about detectable, discernible, knowable qualities. So, what if we go with that, the detectable qualities? Having love rest on detectable qualities, on the properties, rather than some mysterious, underlying, bare particular, seems far more realistic, far more intuitive than some sort of ideal, metaphysically based concept of love. What reasons can we give in favor of detectable quality love? Well, first, people talk about qualities. You can try this yourself. If you have a friend who's in love, ask them, why do they love the person they love? And they'll typically talk about that person, talk about their qualities, their quirky smile, their kindness, their good looks in a bathing suit, or their dependability, etc. And unless someone's a philosopher and probably joking, they wouldn't say that they love their bare particularity. You'll hear people talking about qualities. Next, when you think of dating services, they supposedly test people. I don't know how accurate these are in terms of actual rigorous tests. Probably not very rigorous. But supposedly they test people for qualities and use them to find compatibility in love, or so they claim. Not endorsing any of these tests. No idea whether they're accurate or good or not, but that's what they purport. Thirdly, scientists who tend to really take the love out of love talk about love as driven by genes in search of suitable genes to combine with. So the explanation is given in terms of discernible qualities, that when someone loves someone else, kind of crudely and almost horror movie put, is that one person's genes are kind of like driving them to find better genes or good genes to combine with. So we're kind of like driven around by our genes, which I guess sounds kind of horrible. So given these, sort of views that It's more realistic. People talk about qualities. Dating services rely on qualities. Scientists talk about, finding suitable qualities. So it seems reasonable to conclude that when Jane loves Dick, she loves his qualities, discernible qualities, not some sort of strange, metaphysical, undetectable thing. Now we turn to ideas. What is it that's being, discerned or perceived? So when it comes to perception, kind of the best science and philosophy today, which may not hold up, this video may not age well, but I guess it might. We don't perceive the world directly. We don't, to use Kant's terms, we don't see the noumena. What goes on, this is, incredibly oversimplified, so don't put this like on a, neurology test or test anatomy and physiology. It's that neurological responses to objects that initiate sensory experiences in the mind or brain about such experiences, and that's how perception works. As this, lifted diagram from the interwebs, kind of illustrates with the person perceiving the cat, or rather, cat as perceived by the subject. So we don't experience things directly. We have ideas in our mind about things. And this, of course, is in philosophy, sort of this general view is called representational realism. There's stuff out there, you form ideas of it, and hopefully there's stuff out there that you're forming ideas of. And this is where the skeptics get in, saying you may have these ideas, but there's nothing out there. But this, for the sake of being, talking it sort of scientifically, let's assume there's stuff out there, and that's how it works. So in that case, given the scientific explanation of perception and the sort of popular philosophical view, she never experiences Dick. She doesn't love him directly because she has never directly experienced him. What could that possibly mean? Well, all she's experienced is just various perceptions she takes to be of Dick. That's to say, her ideas form from perceptions. Why is she not experiencing him directly? Well, here's why. Because of interpretation. Perceptions are interpreted by each person. This is, obviously true because every person perceives their own perceptions, and people see things differently. A lot of it is physiology. We just have different, eye structures, ear structures, different sensory capabilities, and different brains. A good analogy is to reading text, a book. So we have an initial experience of colors and shapes, and then we interpret them as meaningful words, if we can read the language, and what the words mean and how you react to them depends a great deal on you. So think of a book you like, and then think of people who don't like that book. Think of a book you don't like, think of people who like that book. They're obviously having a different experience than you are because it's supposedly the same book, but you have very different views. You like it, they don't, and the reverse in other cases. Or think about when someone's reading something and finds it funny, and you don't, and vice versa. So when Jane says she loves Dick, she is saying that she is in love with her ideas of Dick. These ideas might or might not correspond to the real Dick. Probably not, though. Why? Well, because of skeptical worries about the existence of other minds. The classic problem with other minds, namely, in my own case, I know I think and feel, but how do I know that these other beings around me think or feel? I cannot, unlike Bill Clinton, feel their pain. And even worse, there's a classic problem of the external world, which is, how do I know what I seem to be experiencing at all corresponds to anything that is supposedly real? So, on the skeptical view, there might not be any Dick at all. He doesn't even exist. It could all be in Jane's mind. So, loving ideas actually explains a lot. Going back to our methodology, the, explanatory power of something is a key part of assessing metaphysical theories. So this love of ideas can explain quite a bit in a practical way. I mean, people often think that philosophy is so theoretical as to be useless, but here's a case where philosophy actually comes in pretty useful. How our perceptions can explain things in the real world. So imagine a situation in which Jane loves Dick, but when she tells her friends why she loves him, because of these various supposed qualities, her friends do not see him as having all or even any of those qualities. You've probably experienced this yourself. You've been the friend where someone's describing someone to you and you're like, that person's not like that at all. Or maybe it's happened to you where you saw someone a certain way and then you see them differently. So if Jane is sane and not engaged in madness or using hallucinogens or psychedelics or something, a reasonable explanation is that Jane's idea of Dick includes those qualities the actual Dick lacks. In other words, her ideas of him don't correspond to the real him, which would make sense. People fall in love with their idea of somebody and not the person themselves. Another situation. Imagine that Jane initially loves Dick, and then she says that Dick's sudden change put an end to her love. But suppose no one else notices that change in him. Like she says that he's changed in some way that she no longer likes. But everyone else doesn't see him as changed. And, laying aside the problem that he's, putting on an act for everyone else, but people, who claim to know him, etc., don't notice this change. So, if Jane is sane, and Dick is not cleverly acting, gaslighting her, for example, the explanation that would make sense would be that her ideas about him changed, and she's fallen out of love with her ideas, and not him, because she never loved him to begin with, only her idea of him, because she can never know the real him. So, the cynical ending would be, while you are not loved, and neither am I, there is a chance that someone does love the ideas they have of you, and perhaps in my case, as well. In case you're wondering why I used Dick and Jane in the examples, it's because of a old movie, Fun with Dick and Jane, starring George Segal and Jane Fonda. Not a particularly great movie, but for some reason just kind of stuck. So that takes us to the end of Who Do You Love? And next we'll take a look at maybe a less cynical view of love, which is the transcendent argument for true love. As always, I'll see you in the future, and stay safe.